Hey, what's up you guys? It's Kyle, and I wanted to make a video regarding the topic of retiring early because I think it's something that I think about very often, but I think it's also something of a mystery to a lot of people because there could really be a lot of definitions to this. So there's not really a one-size-fits-all definition. There's a lot of different scenarios, and I'm not going to go over any hypothetical situations that's just going to leave you confused. I'm going to actually talk about some really concrete calculations so that you can see the actual possibility of retiring early. And this is not coming from a guy who hasn't done it himself. This is coming from someone who, if they wanted to, I could figure out a way to just create and make my investments and my assets be able to pay for my current lifestyle. So it's not going to come from somebody who hasn't done this kind of thing before. So I'm just gonna go over the possibility of retiring within 10 years, starting at zero. And the first step in doing this is to smash the like button below because it helps with the YouTube algorithm. So please go ahead and do that seriously. It'll turn blue and then we know that we can move forward. So I came across this one thing recently. It's called the FIRE movement. It's actually Financial Independence Retired Early. It's kind of a new movement to give people a grasp on what they can do to be able to save up enough money to be able to pay for their current lifestyle at whatever level that may be. So we'll go over a couple different definitions of that and different scenarios that you can think about yourself of where you would like to be if you were retired. All right, so to start, we'll go over the first one. The first one is called lien fire. So lien fire is basically somebody that would be able to live below the average median of income. I think the average median income is $61,000 of income in the US. So say it's somebody that was able to live well below those means, say for instance, $40,000 or $50,000, be able to live minimally and just be able to have their lifestyle and their investments pay for that typical lifestyle. So the second type of financial independence is something known as a Barista Fire. So this is, say, you have a certain amount of income and assets and investments saved up so that will pay you part of it. However, you want to supplement your lifestyle with, say, for instance, a part-time gig. And that's where they come up with the idea of barista. Something that's part-time that you actually enjoy doing and that you can basically be retired with a little part-time gig, maybe working at a golf course or something that actually would appeal to me. Something part-time where you get little perks and benefits and it's something that you enjoy doing. So this third type of financial independence is called coast fire. This is something where you have a certain amount invested and you let that sit and you just basically have to work right now to pay for the immediate expenses that you have, and then basically what's going to happen is that your investments and your assets are going to grow to the level where you need to be able to just live financially free and independent based on whatever level you need to be. So that's basically just sitting back, letting those assets and investments grow, and then you'll eventually get there, and right now all you need to do is break even. So the fourth type of financial independence is called FIRE. So FIRE is basically you are able to live off of your investments and your assets, and you are just living comfortably. You're living how you're living now. You're probably not going to be flying in private jets and taking trips on private yachts and buying crazy stuff, but you're able to live comfortably and you don't have to really live like you're one step above homelessness. You can just kind of be comfortable and you'll never have to work a day again in your life, and your income will just keep coming in based off of your investments that you have. And then the fifth type of financial independence is called fat fire. So this is kind of someone who wants to live off of $200,000 a year. So they really, basically you don't even have to really worry about what you're buying. You're just living your life, you're taking trips, you're kind of spending, you're not going so crazy with it, but you're able to live at that $200,000 a year income based off of your investments that you have already. So now we just need to answer three questions. 1, how much money do you need to spend? 2, how much money do you currently have saved and invested? And 3, how much money do you make? So the first question, how much money do you need to spend? Now this is the most important question in the whole thing, and here's why. Because once we figure that part out, the rest of it's basic math and very easy. So you need to figure out how much money you need to spend personally to be able to feel like you live comfortably in retirement. And there was a study done that shows that if you can spend only 3% of whatever you have saved and invested, you could live off of that money for the rest of your life and never have to dip into it, it will never run out. So basically what that means is, for instance, if you have $100,000 saved and invested, you could spend up to $3,000 per year and never have to worry about that money running out. So just taking that calculation, if you have $1 million invested, you could live off of $30,000 a year and never have to worry about running out of that money again. Now, on the flip side, for every $100 you spend, you have to have $40,000 invested. So it really comes down to what you need to make and what you need to spend every month to be able to live off your current lifestyle in retirement. Okay, so then step 2, we can go on to the next step after we figure out how much money you need to spend, and that is how much money do you have invested. So for instance, if you figure out what you have invested and then you divide that number by 33, that will give you the number that you could live off of monthly. So say, for instance, and at the same time, you can figure out what money you need to live off of and then multiply that by 33, and that will give you the amount that you need to be invested to be able to live off of and never have to worry about running out of that money. So for instance, if you want to live off of $50,000 a year, and that is what you feel like you could retire with, $50,000 a year. Well, you take that $50,000 and you times it by 33. That will give you the amount of $1,650,000. That is the number. So if you take that number, now this is all retiring before 65 years old, because once you hit 65 years old, well, basically you can withdraw about $50,000 a year and never have to worry about running out of that money. You could just have it in the checking account and, not earning much interest. Now, as time goes on with inflation and everything, $50,000 today's money will be like $70,000 in a couple years' time. However, we're talking about retiring early. So this is the figure that you need to figure out. The figure that you need to figure out for retiring before 65. So another example of this is, say you're more leaning towards lien fire and you could live off of $30,000 a year. And you were like, well, I'm gonna live minimally, not a fancy car, not a fancy apartment. This is just, or not a fancy place to live. This is what I'm gonna live off of, and I could do it with $30,000 a year. Well, you take that times by 33, and it gets to $990,000. That's not even $1 million. So basically, you could retire with that amount saved up and never have to worry about it again. Now, on the flip side of that, say you were saying, I need to retire and make $200,000 a year. Well, that's $6.6 million if you times it by 33. So you can see that it's very variable depending on what you need to live off of every year. And the only other thing that comes with this is that sometimes your investments may vary. So if you're invested heavily in real estate and it produces a better return, well, then you can make those adjustments accordingly. And so the next step in all of this is to figure out how much money you currently make. Most of you know this, but say for instance you are making $30,000 a year and you don't save anything, but you want to live off of $40,000 of passive income a year and retire early, well then I'm just gonna say you're probably gonna need to make a lot more money and be able to save more, because there's no other way of getting around it. And so why I decided to make this a how to retire in 10 years video is because you can't really put a time frame on it if you don't know about this stuff. So for instance, I can't say, well, how to retire before 40, and if you're watching this and you're 39 and a half, you're with nothing saved, you're going to be like, well, this is impossible. So it's really not about the time and the age. It's kind of about where you're at in the process. Again, if you're 25 years old and you're watching this and you're trying to retire before 40, well, that's very doable. If you're 15 years old and you're working part-time gigs while going to high school and you're trying to adapt this mentality, it's going to be much more easy and you're going to be able to hit these goals a lot faster than if you're trying to put a time frame on yourself, which is within a 10-year time frame. I'm thinking with 10 years, this is pretty comfortable and pretty you're more than likely able to do this. So there are studies done that if you can save about 70 to 90% of your income right now with the current money that you make, that you will be able to live exactly like you're living now and retire within 10 years' time. Now, if you can end up making more money and save up more of that, the more money you can save, you will be able to retire and cut down on that time needed to retire much more significantly. So for instance, if you were making $70,000 a year and you were able to save 70 to 90% and only spend $21,000 per year, you would be able to reach that goal of retirement within 10 years. So realistically, if you are just graduating college and you're in your 20s and you're making $100,000 even a year and you're living just above homelessness, you're not going to be able to retire by the time you're 30 years old. So it takes a little bit more time, but 10 years is a good goal to have if you're making the amount that you need to be making and you're living within your means and you're spending a lot less than you need to be and you're saving and investing occasionally and often. So basically there's two ways that I see people can get to this. If you're working a 9-to-5 job, a career, and you're making enough money that you can comfortably just keep making, live comfortably, and these calculations work out, well then you're just time is the only thing you need to do is just bide your time, save, invest, and you'll be able to get there. It's just a matter of time. The other way is to be able to work at a job that not only rewards you for your time and it's not your salary, but it rewards you on the job that you do, because there's only 24 hours in a day. So if you work at a job that can pay you based off of the type of job that you do and how good you do at it, well then you can be able to earn much quicker and be able to get to your goals much faster. So the only thing that I can relate to this to is real estate. So for instance, in real estate, now there are many other industries I'm sure you can do this, but in real estate, it would take the exact same effort and skill for me to sell a $100,000 apartment than it would for me to sell a $1 million apartment. However, and I'm going to argue that it's probably much easier to sell the $1 million apartment, maybe a little scarier at first because it's something you have to wrap your head around, but it takes the exact same effort. So why wouldn't I focus my time on something that grants me a better reward for my time put in, which is to focus on those higher paying and higher quality homes that I'd like to sell? So my piece of advice for anybody right now who's looking to earn supplemental income to be able to save more, to be able to invest that money and be able to retire early, would be to look possibly in the e-commerce space. Now, I'm not talking about opening up an e-commerce store, but something that you can do online now with seeing what COVID had in store for all of us, something that you could scale on the internet in business, and you could develop this, whether it's what you're jumping into full-time or whether it's what you're doing supplementally part-time in addition to the job that you have currently and what you're currently making. Now, another tip that I would give you as well is that you really need to love what you do. And what I mean by this is, well, maybe people hear that and say, oh, well, Kyle, it's easy. You love real estate and that's what you're doing. Well, the thing that I'm talking about is, for a lot of you that know, I have focused on real estate because it's provided me the flexibility and the solvency to be able to adapt to my current lifestyle, which I was pursuing acting. That was a dream of mine. So that dream and passion, that big why, was something that made me, I feel, be successful at real estate and learn to love that and learn to love what I was doing. And I was able to succeed in that because of my love for what I was also pursuing on the side, which was acting. So the acting passion and craft helped me in real estate to be able to succeed in that. Another thing that I would say is that there's something with real estate where you have to actually prospect. And a lot of people do it. 90% of the agents don't do it, but a lot of the people that know what prospecting is, that's where you generate the majority of your income and the majority of your business. And that's maybe a grueling hour or two a day of work. And I remember talking to there was a Tony Robbins coach what I coached with, and it was something with mindset, and it was talking about I was really having a tough time prospecting. I didn't want to get on the phones. I was like, I'm not having a good time with this. I'm really frustrated. I'm really, I feel like depressed working. I don't really want to do this, and something's wrong. And I'll never forget her advice to me, which was to enjoy the process, enjoy what I'm doing, and find joy with it. Somehow find joy with it. And the more I was enjoying it, the more actual better results I had, the more joy I gave off, and the better job I did. And if I could find a way to enjoy it, the people that I was talking to would just feed off of that enjoyment. And it ended up just, I was having a better time doing it, and I also did a better job at it. Now, since we're on the topic of real estate, say for instance, you do something that supplements your income. Say you are to buy an investment property that you shop around and you can use $60,000 that you saved up to buy a $300,000 house. Now, say you shopped around for a good long while and that $300,000 house that you found was actually on the market worth about $330K, but you shopped around so much and found a great deal. Well, now you used your $60K to buy a $300,000 house that was actually worth $330,000, and then say you put 10 grand more into it and fixed it up a little bit, and now it's worth $350,000 if you were to put it on the market. So now, off of your $70,000 invested, you have a $350,000 house, and you basically made $50,000 off of your $70,000 that you invested. So you almost doubled your money. So this is a great way to be able to work up avenues to be able to greatly increase your earning potential and reach your goals much faster. So now, instead of that $70,000 that you put in, you have equity of $120,000. So you can see how that can exponentially grow, especially if you were able to do this every 12 to say 24 months. So basically, that's the gist of it. You want to live as frugally as you can, make as much money as you possibly can, and then make that money work for you. You must be able to save at least 70 to 90% of your income. So I'll give you a quick example. When I first moved to the New York City area, I really excelled with real estate, and I was starting to do as best I can while I was here, and I was pursuing the acting goal. So I was able to live as frugally as possible with about $3,000 a month, including taxes that I had to make and pay for, because when you're a real estate agent, you're 1099, so you're not paying taxes right up front. So included a lot of those things, and it was $3,000 a month, and I was being able to make approximately, when I first got into real estate, around $10,000 a month. So I was definitely living within and saving that extra 70% and being able to make investments with. I even would take those investments and take that money and be able to buy assets that would pay me for holding those assets, such as real estate, and essentially ended up paying for things like rent and other bills like that. So in this aspect, I can essentially stop working if I wanted to and be able to live within my means and be able to have my investments and assets pay for my lifestyle and where I'm at. However, I'm pretty much a workaholic and I love working, so that's not going to happen. But essentially, this is the model to be able to follow to do this if you would really like to, and this is a 10-year plan for you. Now, that's pretty much everything. The whole gist of it is make money, save your money, and invest often and frequently. And the next very important thing that you must do right now to be able to get on your way to retire early is smash the like button until it turns blue, because it helps with the YouTube algorithm. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please follow me on Instagram. I post there pretty much daily, so you will get other aspects of my life as well. Also, I'm on Twitter, so if you're on there, check me out on there. And guys, don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell so you will get notifications every time I post a new video, as well as, if you would like, there's links below to Robinhood, which will give you a free stock. So might as well just join that account if you haven't started investing, and you'll be on your way to start investing and living financially free, as well as a link to Acorns, which is something I use personally. It essentially saves your digital change, so it gets you to retirement age faster and forces you to save. So guys, thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed, and talk to you soon.